But welcome to my colleagues. My name is Paul Arnell, and I'm an associate professor in the law school and host the law school webinar series. And I'm delighted to have two of my colleagues in the law school joining me today to talk about what they get up to as a considerable part of their workload. I'm thinking, and that's working with the Grampian Community Law Centre. So I'm joined by Rebecca Cox, a solicitor, a lecturer, and the law center manager, who amongst all that heavy workload is also an academic with an interest in international or in environmental law, no, international environmental law, environmental law both. And also by Rachel O'Neill, who is a lecturer with a focus on paralegal practice. And her interests include community law in the community and welfare law. So what we're thinking is a good idea is to share what the law center does and its work, impact, and the challenges that the center and those working in the center may face. So we're going to start in the general and move on to more specifics. But what I would like to also say at the very start is please do post any questions you have, and I will read them out at the end after 40 minutes. I think when we're coming to the end of the substantive part, and Rebecca and Rachel will do their best to address them. And the best way to do that, please, is with the Q&A box. So please don't let us down, everybody out there, by not asking us any questions. We'd be happy to receive some and do our best to address them. Okay, the first very general question, I'll welcome Rebecca and Rachel, is what is the Grampian Community Law Centre? Rebecca.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having us. So the GCLC, it's a pro bono legal advice and advocacy service. And it's student-led, and we just provide legal services for those that are in the northeast of Scotland and Orkney, who are either on a reduced income or otherwise, for various reasons, wouldn't be able to access legal services.
Okay, and so a pro bono, I guess, is the crucial part, that you are offering services for free.
Free, yeah. So everything that we do is free to the service user. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. And how did this come about? How did the center emerge or arise or come to be in the first place?
Do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, Rachel, please. Rachel.
Yes, so the law clinic originally started in 2013 under the law school at RGU, and its specialties changed over the years depending on the academic staff that led the clinic at that time. In 2022, it was rebranded and relaunched as the Grampian Community Law Centre, with more of a focus on having more of a grounding there, running more full-time almost, with more staff as well. So prior to that, it was more part-time with academic staff, and now that we've got more of a focus on running it between the two of us and Kim as well, who joins us more recently. So yeah, we have rebranded and relaunched in 2022 now.
Okay. So you suffered, you celebrated, I was going to say you suffered. You celebrated your 10-year anniversary last year or something, or the clinic did. So that's a good effort, lasting for 10 years in the first place. And now into your second decade. Maybe there's more of a general question, maybe an obvious one, but why is there a need for your services? Why is there a need for any law clinic to offer pro bono legal services?
I think essentially there are some significant gaps in the legal services that are available to certain demographics. So those that are economically and socially disadvantaged, particularly, will find it very difficult to access some of the services. So things like they might need advice on a variety of matters, and some of those services that they would ordinarily use are under pressure for a variety of reasons: funding, increased number of users, and they struggle to get access to legal services and advice and advocacy. So because of funding, an increased need because of the cost of living crisis that has impacted both individuals and those funded services, we see that there are significant gaps in the kind of legal market to address those particular demographics that just simply can't afford legal advice themselves.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in a bit of the dark about this. I thought that, you know, of course, the Scottish government pays for legal aid on the one hand, and then there is also maybe another relevant institution like the Citizens Advice Bureau. Would those just be overwhelmed or insufficient? I assume, is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, I mean, I think that we last heard it, the Citizens Advice Bureau had about a 9-week waiting list. So obviously, if someone's got something more urgent, they can't wait 9 weeks. That's not practical. And then when it comes to legal aid, although the funding is there in some respects, there aren't as many solicitors providing that advice through that route because it's simply not as financially viable for them. I think it's something like they have to do 3 times the caseload in order to make a similar sort of money that they would by a paying client. So there are significant shortfalls in the number of providers for legal aid, civil legal aid in particular.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you. I mean, just getting back to the title of your Grampian Community Law Center, your services are open to everyone within Grampian within this, or is it more of a localized within, you know, the environment of RGU and Garth D, or do you have a geographical restriction on the location where the individual seeking your services can come?
Under the Grampian Community Law Centre, it's specifically for the North East Scotland region. Additionally, we've got our Orkney clinic, so obviously that is primarily for those who are in the Highlands Islands, Orkney areas, in the more remote kind of access, more specifically tailored to them that run under the Orkney clinic. But yeah, under the Grampian Community Law Centre and the community clinic, it is the North East of Scotland that we tailor to.
Okay, good, thank you. I guess, and this kind of brings me onto that, and I was a bit confused when I was thinking about it earlier, but you originally fashioned the law clinic, and now it's the Grampian Community Law Center. And can you explain, does the center entail different divisions or parts or clinics within it? Is that how you the sort of the structure?
Yeah, so overall we're sort of centre as a whole, but then we've got clinics within that. So the clinics that we have is the original clinic, which was the community clinic that started in 2013. And that clinic has a base at RGU in the law school in the Riverside building. And we're here all week for appointments, either in person on campus or virtually on Teams or Zoom if that suits the individual. And then we have a physical base in Torry as well. So that started in September 2022. We kind of had ties with Torry, but more recently in October last year, we started our physical base at the Torry Medical Practice and also at the Bridge Centre. So we're there weekly, rotating between the two bases in Torry. So we sort of specifically have a base in Torry because it's an area of some deprivation and in need of additional support. And then in April last year, we set up the virtual Orkney clinic. So that operates, as it sounds, entirely online. We have a base in Kirkwall at the Blythe Centre. So they provide people with a base if they need assistance with technology in order to access our services, but we deal with that entirely remotely. And that's worked really well to date, actually, that we see an awful lot of people coming through the Blythe and using the Blythe as a base. And then lastly, but not least, we also have the climate clinic that deals entirely with environmental related matters. So animal law, planning, those types of things. And we're actually one of only 2 universities that have a partner with the Environmental Law Foundation. So they provide us with cases and we decide whether or not there's something that we can take on through that route. And again, it's predominantly virtual.
That sounds like a pretty hefty workload. Not only, as you mentioned, just the northeast of Scotland, well, that's a big enough region itself, but let alone, you know, specific and going up to Orkney and then looking at the climate as well. Okay, so that's the clinics and the structure. What more specifically does like the center provide? I mean, would that entail you know, giving, I guess, obviously giving advice, but they do to going to court, or what sort of services, or and that follows on to my question, what sort of cases in a general sense do you get exposed to, Rachel?
Predominantly, we're dealing with social welfare cases, so mostly housing, employment, those kind of standard cases that kind of come in that affect a lot of people's day-to-day lives. The legal cases that we obviously support can vary case to case. So we do assess them case by case as they come in. We don't do court representation, I'm afraid. And obviously our resources are limited, but we do try to help as many as we can. If we can't, we provide signposting. We do quite a bit of networking as well, so that we can offer, if we're not able to assist, we can offer signposting to another agency or to another service that might be able to support them with the specific need or request that they're having in their matter. So we will try our best to support as many people as possible, but there's obviously limitations as to whether we've got a very heavy caseload at that moment in time, or whether the case itself specifically is not something that we would be able to push forward with, for example, a court case. So it just depends on a case-by-case basis that we would assess and see what help we could offer them.
Okay, excellent. So you guys, I think, are obviously the focal point, if I could say that, you and Kim Harkness, who's not present today, are the focal point of the center. But of course, you work with students and perhaps also other solicitors. I'm not sure. We'll maybe come to that. But obviously, the students are a big part of the clinic. It's not just you two giving advice or assisting or liaising with members of the public. I mean, how do the students play a role and help and assist in the clinic?
Yeah, so the students they volunteer to be part of the clinic. So at the start of the academic year, we open it up for applications from the students, and we accept applications to date from LLB students, law and management students, master students. We've had a PhD student involved as well. So a variety of students at all levels of their study. So a really good variety of people involved from a student level. So they can either opt to be a student advisor, so they're just involved in casework and some of the admin and the things behind the scene, raising money, and there's a variety of things that they could do within the clinic. We also have student officers who have a sort of designated role within the clinic, so they have specific things that they are required to do. So it might be that they have a role in terms of admin, or they advocate for diversity within the students in the clinic. You know, that we've got a variety of roles there. And then we've got the student management team. So they help with the day-to-day running of the clinic and making some of the decisions about where the clinic's headed, the types of activities that we're involved in, and sort of helping other students, the advisors, and making sure that, you know, their students are happy. And of course, they can always be involved in casework as well. So the students are sort of involved in various different ways within the clinic. I don't know if Rachel wants to add anything to that.
No, I don't think so. I think you've covered it.
Okay, well, I guess I have a question, or sort of follow-on question. So, but the students themselves would not give any specific legal advice, so they wouldn't be qualified to do so. Is that accurate? I mean, and then related to that is, does the law clinic need indemnity insurance or something? Is that the term for it? What, you know, I assume so.
Yeah, so the students don't give advice directly, and we would never expect a student to sort of sit in a client meeting and provide advice on the spot. We as staff, we don't always know what the subject matter is when we first meet a client. So we always have a sort of initial consultation with the client where we're just getting information and finding out what it is they need assistance with. Sometimes it's just signposting, sometimes they need more extensive help. So we would always get that information from them, and then we would go away and discuss it as a clinic team and decide if it's a case that we can help with at all. If we can't, can we signpost them anywhere else? What can we do to help them? And if it is one we take on, then we talk the students through what is required, what are the next steps, what we need the students to do. Anything that they do, we check before it goes out to a client. So they're always well supervised. We would never give them sort of free rein to discuss with the client unsupervised. But yes, to answer your question about insurance, we do require professional indemnity insurance as well in everything that we do. And
the law school must stump up the bill for that, I assume.
We always hope so, yes.
Yeah. No, that's just a question. Okay, so that's, I mean, my next question kind of seems obvious, but I wonder if you could put some meat on the bones. I mean, so the students are involved, as you mentioned, as officers or advisors, and and helping run the clinic, and to my mind, very useful in more real life practical experience. But would you have any views on the educational benefits for the students involved? Rachel, you want to go first? What are the educational benefits for students who would put themselves forward to take part in the law clinic?
Yeah, so there's lots of different avenues here, and we've opened this up to the students more so as well as a student-led clinic. They can gain a lot of different avenues of experience. So depending on the role as well that they perhaps apply for. So if they want to join the SMT, there's the opportunity for them to take up a student director role, which gives them a completely different avenue of experience compared to student advisor role. But of course, it all blends together in terms of adding to their overall experience. So soft skills and interpersonal skills, they're obviously learning outside the classroom and being able to put that that knowledge and experience into action. And obviously it gives them real world cases to work on, as well as some decent workplace experience that they can take out into the workplace in future when they've qualified from RGU and they've decided to obviously go out and start their traineeship, for example, if they are solicitors, or otherwise if they go on to be paralegals or whatever they decide to do. It gives them quite a lot of different avenues of experience there, and we would obviously try and get them to engage as much as possible, depending on their role as well, and the different avenues that they would like to gather more experience in. Is always open to them to approach us and say that they have an interest in particular cases or a particular avenue of experience. If some of them are looking for office-based experience or administration, or even director experience, for example. We're always open to them approaching us and discussing what they would like to try and gain from joining the clinic as well, and as well as giving them public engagement experience as well, and going out there and dealing with real people and real life scenarios. So yeah, lots for them to take away.
Yeah, quite good for their CVs, I would assume. I wonder, Rebecca, I mean, you've been doing this for a little while now. I mean, have we got to the stage where we've had some people that were working for the law clinic who have gone on and entered the workforce and that you're aware of, and would they, and this maybe gets my question, how would there be a relationship between practicing, are there, outside practicing solicitors in the clinic, or is it, or is that once they've left, they're sort of gone and you have another crop of students come through?
No, so we have seen more recently, actually, we've put a call out through the alumni to see if we could have any of our previous students come back to the clinic. And we've had some success with that, actually. We've had a previous member of RGU student who has come back to do some training with our students on immigration, and that was really well received, and they've been involved in providing advice behind the scenes for us for immigration cases. And also we've had a couple of students reach out through alumni again, which led us to having some training through the PDSO, so the Public Defence Solicitor's Office. They're now a trainee there, and they wanted to share their experience with us, and provided some training for the students and to make awareness of the different types of traineeships that were available. And certainly I think some of the students hadn't even heard of the PDSO, let alone appreciated the type of traineeship that is considerably different to maybe just your run-of-the-mill private practice traineeship. So we do see that there are links between previous students coming back to us, and we are looking to kind of strengthen those further and gather more alumni, because obviously they've been through the process. Some of them have been part of the clinic previously with different members of staff and have realised the benefits of it, and are keen to come back and sort of share their sort of career journey to date, really. So it's been really lovely to meet some of the students that have come back to us.
That's excellent, I think. I mean, sometimes I try to impart a lesson to my students, and they just think, who's this old dude, but if you get a former student that's still considerably younger than me, but has gone through and they are listened to or maybe heeded a little more than I would be, or a lecturer would be, perhaps, because they've walked in those exact same footsteps of our students that they're going through currently.
I think they found it a very unusual experience to stand at the front of the classroom and provide a presentation to students. They sort of reflected that it felt really odd, and it was actually a little bit scary and quite different to talking to the clients. So I think it surprised them as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, that's an excellent development. So that, well, we could hope, and maybe our webinar either tonight or once it's recorded and uploaded to YouTube can encourage RGU Law School alumni to come forward and reach out and take part. And I'm assuming you'd be happy to hear from them.
Oh, we'd love to hear from them. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we move up. You mentioned the PDSO. Would the students that join up with the law clinic be provided with, you know, I assume they're requiring sort of training? Are there specific training courses or more general training to assist them in their work in the law clinic? Rachel?
Yes. So we do have a training schedule in place currently for this year, and we also work with a service called Pro Bono Skills, and we're just waiting for them to relaunch, and they can also offer online training as well that we're looking to implement hopefully in the coming years. But for just now, Rebecca, Kim and I have worked quite tirelessly to get some training put in place for them. So almost on a weekly basis, we've got some training for them. So we've done some GDPR, letter writing, email communication, health and safety, confidentiality, client skills training, CVs as well, which obviously benefits the students themselves. We're doing interview skill training this week, I think it is. And we've also had talks on immigration law. We've also got housing and employment as well. And we've also, as Rebecca said, the PDSO have come in and spoken, and we've had SSSC and other partnerships that have come in and given talks as part of our training with us as well. So there's a level of benefit where we're being supported by our colleagues in the law school who have come in and helped us do some of these training elements, and the wider RGU schools as well, from GDPR and health and safety officers in RGU have come in and done training on our behalf. So we're being well supported in training and being able to provide that to the students, which is obviously a great benefit to them in volunteering in the clinic.
Yeah, that sounds excellent, an excellent benefit as well. I mean, hope our students appreciate everything they're getting, and a kind of a bridge between sort of the academic and then maybe certainly practice, or even the bridge between the academics and the traineeship, or supplementing the traineeship. Or sorry, I meant the DPLP, the diploma. No, that's very good. So again, this is another question that may be obvious, I think, but I wonder if you could describe what you think. Okay, it's good for the students. Obviously good for the community, but how could you describe or put into words how the law clinic benefits the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think essentially what we're doing is knowledge and expertise sharing, that we're providing a service drawing from the skills that we have as a law school, but also we can, where needed, we can draw from other schools and departments, and we have done that where necessary. So we've had some clients come in that have included subject matter that isn't legal. So for instance, we've been in touch with the social work department and the Scott Sutherland department as well, and we've been able to provide sort of cross-departmental advice and expertise, which I think is really important, that we share those skills with the local community, and that benefits the community, and that is part of one of the university's strategies, is that we engage more closely with the community to benefit them, and I think the clinic really does have an important role in doing that, in reaching out to those who need support, and we can provide that to them.
Yeah. So I think that's excellent. We can bring in other schools and parts of the university to contribute their expertise as well, and be the link between the classroom or the academics and the real world, in a sense. And that's what the civic or community engagement, I assume, is all about. So you sound very busy and fascinating work you're getting up to. But I assume you face challenges, either at time or resources or the usuals, and maybe even other ones that are not. Do you want to tell us maybe some of the challenges that the center faces and the center's work faces? Rachel, you first.
Yeah. So we've obviously spoken about this a little bit earlier, but there is obviously a gap in the legal services between legal aid and CAB being overwhelmed as well. We do get a very steady stream of clients coming to us from all lengths and breadths of their eligibility per se, that are struggling to either find a solicitor or can't afford to find a solicitor. And we do find that obviously we have limited resources in the clinic as well, which is part of our signposting and networking agenda in terms of getting additional support and trying to obviously network with other firms outside RGU as well. But yeah, it's just a matter of sometimes being a bit overwhelmed as a whole, the legal service as a whole, for those who are at a kind of detriment to not being able to afford the private practice fees that are out there.
Rebecca, is any other challenges that spring to your mind? I mean, is there a big administrative burden, I assume, or record keeping, or?
Yeah, I mean, all of those probably, it probably represents challenges much like anything else in any other job, that, you know, time is a big one. There's never enough hours in the day probably to do the things that you would like to do and achieve the things that you would like to achieve. So we're always kind of up against the clock. Yeah, there is a big admin load to this. Obviously, we're governed by the Law Society, so we have to make sure that we tick all those boxes and that we do the record keeping according to the Law Society regulations. And that takes time as well. So again, time. And I think, you know, just as Rachel said, that we clearly see the reality of a system that is often overburdened, and we have a constant stream of emails coming in, and we're not always able to answer all of those. We can't, you know, fill all of the gaps, unfortunately, and it's sometimes challenging and difficult to have to turn some people away and try and signpost them to other places. And we just simply can't help everyone, and I think that's always challenging.
Yeah, a bit challenging, a bit frustrating, but I mean, that's maybe a bit of the downside, but maybe there must be I'm assuming quite an upside when you do manage to help, provide services and help somebody out of a problem, or give them advice and assure them that, this is the best course of action they could take. And there must be upsides as well as challenges. Is that true, Rachel? Do you find is it satisfying work you're getting up to in the clinic?
As somebody who for the last wee while before joining RGU worked in a charitable housing association as well, it's kind of a core belief of mine to support and engage with the public in being able to offer these services. Yeah, it's definitely something that I quite closely engage with, and it's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to join RGU and be able to stand on the other side and be able to support those who are in need.
Good. Okay. So maybe maybe we get some satisfaction of some cases, maybe more than others, but are there any particularly interesting or relevant cases that have arisen? And I know, of course, we can't speak about any specifics, but in general terms, that have arisen that maybe surprised you?
Oh, surprised us. I think there's been many surprises. I think, we get such a wide variety of cases. I think that's probably one of the surprising things, is that the sheer variety of things that come through our door. No two cases are ever the same, obviously, but just, the different types of problems that people come to us with, you couldn't predict it. But some of the employment cases have been really interesting for the students to follow, to see how they unfold, and some of the issues that people face at work, and some of the consumer issues that we've had have been quite interesting ones for the students to deal with. And I think they always get a bit of a kick out of being able to help people and to be able to make a difference, and to realize that actually when they put the skills that they've learned on their course into practice, that they can be really beneficial for others. And I think they always get a bit of a kick out of that, that they've been able to do something helpful to those that wouldn't have help otherwise.
Yeah, you want to add anything, Rachel, to that, or you?
No, I agree with Rebecca there. I think one of the bigger cases that we've obviously seen coming in more recently, which we can kind of talk about because we've been quite public in our engagement with it so far, is the RAC issue in Tory. And that, I think, from mine and Rebecca's perspective, and hopefully as well as the students, has been quite enlightening. It's quite a large burden to the community of Tory, and that's one of our obviously agendas, is to support the Tory community as a whole with our clinic there. So this having come up in the community there has been a real kind of eye-opener for all of us, as well as the work that we're putting into trying to support them with this rather difficult case. We do feel for them, and obviously it's quite an interesting one as well. Not something that's been widely problematic across the UK so far, so something quite new for all of us to deal with.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the students probably didn't realise some of the impacts of that on those affected by the RAC case. Certainly, we've had students who have come along to the open sessions that we've had at the Bridge Centre. They've spoken to residents that are affected, and I think they were quite surprised, shocked about the impact that it would have on those people, and the far-reaching impacts for their finances and their well-being. So I think from a student point of view, as well as staff, we've all been quite surprised by, you know, the implications of that, and then the volume of people affected by it. It's certainly been a big sort of topic of discussion in the clinic over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, and a newsworthy one. I mean, generally, rightfully so. I mean, you know, you're hearing about it and the harrowing story and difficulties of people with their their homes, you know, being threatened or indeed being removed or having to leave. You know, it's a very disturbing story in many ways. Okay, so thank you. I am moving on now to the clinics worked with we mentioned already, with some solicitors outside or indeed other organizations. Does the center have partnerships or arrangements with external bodies or charities? We guess we mentioned the Law Society, but in other groups you work with to help you with your work and provide help the students, and indeed, I guess importantly for our audience, you know, where would you be looking to develop your relationships with any outside bodies or law firms going forward?
Yeah, networking is a big part of what we're trying to achieve, especially in this coming year as well. We're definitely looking to bridge some more kind of network relationships with other partnerships and providers in the Aberdeen area, as well as obviously wider for any of the firms that are interested. We do have quite a few partnerships in place already, which we've mentioned, quite a few where we are signposting out to or seeking support from them, either with training or with cases specifically, as well as alumni. So we are trying to kind of cast quite a wide net in order to obviously gain as much support for the clinic as much as possible, as well as obviously doing our best to expand and support the smaller clinics that we have running underneath the GCLC as a whole. And I'll let Rebecca tell you our good news coming next.
Yeah, so one of the kind of ties that we've had is with LawWorks, who provide who have student pro bono awards for law clinics across the UK. And we have been, again, for the second year running, nominated for an award for best contribution by a law school. So only as of 2 o'clock today were we allowed to talk about that. So that's the first time we've sort of publicly been able to say that. So that means that the students' work is being acknowledged, and potentially, you know, we might be successful, we hope, with an award. But it's nice to be recognised with a nomination, and you know, there's a really nice award ceremony down in the House of Lords in London. So we hope that maybe a student or two might be able to attend that and enjoy that celebration. So that's another exciting thing that's happened very recently for us as a clinic. And we're quite proud of that for the second year running, we've been nominated.
Well, that's the first I've heard of that. I suppose so. I'm not in inside knowledge. Many congratulations indeed. And I'm sure I could speak on behalf of the law school. I would say very well done. I mean, you know, I think the law clinic is a tremendous addition the law school and its work. It's not just purely a provider of undergraduate or postgraduate legal education or the publication of academic research, but as you say, engaging with the community and helping the community and providing great services to our students. And I think you're doing a great job with that. So congratulations for the award. I think it's very well deserved. I think we have one more final question, and then I can see we've got one in the Q&A box, but if any of our participants want to plunk another one in, that would be good. The second one is looking for the final question is looking forward. I mean, I don't know if you're so busy, do you have a chance to make plans for the future, or you're just fighting fires all along? But if you have plans, can you tell us about how you see the Grampian Community Law Centre moving forward in the next year or two? Who's first?
Rebecca.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, somehow we do manage to squeeze in plans for the future despite being busy, and we do have some exciting plans. We have plans potentially for another clinic, which we can't talk about yet, but kind of keep an eye on the space, I suppose. But in addition, we are looking to amend the way in which the clinic runs as a whole, so that the students' work can go towards their module, so they can get credit towards a module, and they can do their clinic work within a module so that it counts towards their degree program and is recognised in that way. So that's of benefit to them, that their time is not just feel-good factor, that it is actually counting towards their degree as well in terms of credits. But it also means that it provides the clinic with a bit of consistency for the year. So obviously we run on voluntary basis by the students, and that obviously fluctuates during the year. But if it's embedded in a module, it means that they're sort of in it for the semester, and they're sort of committed to doing a certain number of hours within the clinic, which kind of just helps us plan a bit better, I think. You know, we're grateful for all the help that they give us out with their studies, but in terms of planning for, you know, what is quite a big workload, it's important if we've got a bit of continuity and consistency. So we're hoping that embedding it in a module will be really helpful for everyone. Yeah, I don't know if Rachel's got anything else she wants to add to that.
Just obviously reiterating what you're saying there, and it will give the students allocated time to be able to come in and do work as well, which I think, given their workload over the semesters, if we can tie it into the module and have dedicated work time for them, then it means that they know that they have that, I wouldn't say spare time, but they have that time allotted that they can get on with work more specifically for the clinic. So I think for both them and for us would be a real benefit to be able to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like an excellent idea. I know we used to have a mooting module, or maybe we still do, that had credit bearing, where the students would prepare and take part in a moot, I think for 15 credits. I think so. This is maybe something similar, you know, an applied, let's say more real life, but experience. But why would we, you know, not, you know, award credit towards the degree for that work? I suppose there's some administration or assessment involved, or some sort of engagement that would be entail additional work, their administration for that, but hopefully be well worth it to have that defined contribution over the course of a semester. Well, thank you very much for that. I sharing that information. I do have a couple of questions in the Q&A box. I'm going to read them to you, and then you can think about them when I'm reading them out, and then hopefully have a punt at answering them. The first one is, given the multifaceted nature of the legal issues, how does the law clinic prioritize its caseload to ensure maximum impact within the community, while also addressing the diverse needs of clients? So you mentioned this may be a sifting process anyways, but how do you prioritize your caseload to ensure maximum impact, while also addressing the diverse needs of your clients? A bit of a toughie.
I'll start with a very broad answer to this, and then Rebecca can divulge a bit more. But in terms of the Orkney and Tory clinics, we have specific time allocated per week. So Wednesday afternoons we go to Tory, and that's where we are either at the medical practice or the Bridge Centre each week, and that's where we can obviously have our dedicated time towards meeting those clients face to face then, or using the time to be able to deal with any of the cases that have arisen from the Tory community as a general at that time. And Thursday evenings are our dedicated Orkney clinic time as well. Again, that's when we use the time virtually to meet with clients and as much as possible be able to support them during that time more specifically. Other than that, from a personal perspective, we very much take it as it comes. So depending on what the caseload is for the following week, for example, we'll have to just prioritise our workload around that. Obviously, we're both teaching as well. So beyond our teaching time, we have to use our time wisely in terms of dedicating it towards the cases more specifically. So a very broad answer there for you.
No, thank you. A good answer. Rebecca, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not uncommon for us to see cases come in where people have certain deadlines that they need to meet, and those deadlines are 2 days from now, and they need help now. So sometimes it's dictated to us by the individuals and the situation that they find themselves in. Obviously, we can't help with everything. If they're court deadlines, we just can't help. But sometimes there are other things that we can sort of, provide support for and make sure that they meet those deadlines. That's also particularly true in that we're a referral agency for the Faculty of Advocates Free Legal Service Unit. So we will have certain deadlines that we must prioritise through them. So the advocates may decide that they will take a case on that we've referred to them. But that doesn't mean we fall away from that picture. We're very much involved and do the sort of legwork and a lot of the admin and documentation. And there are, of course, court deadlines that we have to adhere to if we're involved in an FLSU case. So that is often a priority where we're involved in one of those. And like Rachel says, we have to work around that. If there are court deadlines set, we have to sort of prioritise those around our other workload.
Okay, so it is maybe a moving feast. You think you have a workload organized for a week, and then something happens and it all goes to pot, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a very different question, but I was thinking of asking this, but I was beaten to the punch. I think I'm aware of it. Is it a Scottish-wide grouping of law clinics? Because I know our RGU is not the only one. Obviously, there's a number across the country. Do you engage with and share information and meet the people and work with the people in other law clinics throughout the country? Have you been involved in that?
Yeah, we're part of the Sulcan group, if you'd want to say that. So that's the Scottish
Universities Law Clinic Network. Yeah.
Thank you. So we held the conference last year for the Sulcan conference. It's held annually. This year it's being held by
is it Strathclyde?
Strathclyde, yes. I think that's next month. So not entirely sure if we're going or not. We're just waiting for the date. But yes, we're part of the Sulcan group, and our student director primarily meets with them every month, I think it is. And they share information, discuss how the clinics are running, and it's a really good source for us to have to be able to speak with the other universities in Scotland and get a feel for how they're operating, as well as their caseload and being able to share those resources.
Yeah, it must be very interesting just to gauge, just to see, is it similar issues or cases arising throughout the country or not? I assume so.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of swap stories and war stories and so on, and we can meet some of the academic staff that are involved in other law clinics as well, which is really nice for us, because obviously we're doing something that's a little bit unique within a law school, so it's nice to meet other people that are doing similar, and see, the kind of highs and lows that they're having as well, and we find that they're often experiencing the same things.
Okay, this is just a question I've just made up at the very end, and I don't know but it's like, so thank you. I appreciate everything you've said. If you could have a wish list or something, what would you want, as regards the center in a general sense?
Ooh, that's a question.
I know. I don't know if it's a fair one or not, but Rebecca and then each other.
I suppose we would like to increase our kind of networks with working professionals in the law field. So if we could increase the number of practicing solicitors from various firms that could help support us, whether that's from a training point of view or assisting the students with a caseload point of view, that would probably be at the top of my wish list, I think.
Do you agree, Rachel? Have you got your own?
I would agree, but also in the perspective that it enables us to help more people if we can get a bigger network as well. So completely agree with what Rebecca said, and being able to offer more support to a wider group if we can get more network and support in place. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I hope this webinar might just help in a little bit in that regard. If not, we can try to do something else to help, because I think it's a very worthy cause indeed. Well, indeed. Well, thank you very much. I guess the last thing for me to say is just to thank you and to thank our audience for coming along this evening to listen about and learn about the law clinic and what we do. Very important work, and for both the community and the students, I think there's no doubt of that. So thank you, Rebecca and Rachel, and thank you everybody for coming. And stay tuned for our next law school webinar, but it won't be until the next academic semester after the summer. Thanks again, Rebecca and Rachel. Goodbye, everybody. Take care. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, Paul.